Hey, everybody. Welcome to An Attorney and an Accountant Walk Into a Bar. I'm John. I'm the attorney, and my buddy here.
I'm Kent, and I'm the accountant.
All right, Kent, what are we talking about today?
Oh, man, we keep talking about AI, and it's because AI keeps evolving. Skynet is here.
Let's get to it.
All right, John, so in another installment of the evolution of AI, and like I said last time, it's a logarithmic curve. So I'm starting to see things that are not scary, but very impressive that AI can do. And one of the things you brought up this morning recently was Gemini. What is that?
Google Gemini. 3 days ago, they rolled this thing out, and it's sort of Google's answer or one-upmanship of ChatGPT 4, more specifically ChatGPT 4V. So what's interesting about it is they made a big deal about rolling it out because it's so much better than ChatGPT 4. It's the next thing, right? But if you look at the benchmarks, yes, it does beat ChatGPT 4 on almost every measure, but only by a few percent. So it's not that big an increase. But what is the big increase is not that. What the big thing is that it is multimodal.
What does that
Now,
mean?
the ChatGPT is also multimodal in the V version, but no one can get to that unless you're a developer. So right now, there is no availability to the general public of a multimodal capability, but that looks like that's what Google is going to be giving us with
So
the Gemini.
help me understand in layman's terms, what is multimodal?
Multimodal. This is nuts. So right now, if you've interacted with ChatGPT, you type something in,
Yeah.
and it gives you something back, right?
Yep. Prompting.
Well, multimodal means that it can look at a picture, it can look at text as an image, it can look at music, it can look at audio, it can look at video, and it can respond based on those things. One of the crazy things that it does, and this is Google's demo, so maybe we don't know how good it really does this because maybe they just showed us the good stuff, right? But the guy has a camera trained on a blank piece of paper, and he draws a kind of cartoonish version of a duck. And as he's drawing it, the machine's responding, oh, that's a squiggly line. Oh, now you've made it rounder. Oh, that's a duck.
Wow. And it has characteristics of a duck
Right.
shape.
And then it goes, and then he makes the duck, blue, and the machine responds.
Right.
And the machine responds, ducks aren't usually blue.
Uh-huh.
And then he shows a 3D image of a rubber duck, and she says, "Oh, that's a duck too. Oh, I could see that where that's a blue duck. It's a toy." And then he asks it, "Well, can this float?" And it's sort of like, "Well, maybe. Not sure what it's made of." And then he squeaks it. Oh, well, that's a rubber duck, and therefore, it has
Because
lower
it squeaks.
density. Yeah, because it's full of air, it has a lower density than water, so it's going to float. Like I'm sitting and listening to this going, wow.
So it's taking in sound, sight, color,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And that is that next step, because the other thing that I wanted to kind of bring to light, as you know, I'm a gearhead. I love tech stuff. I'm not saying I'm the most tech advanced, but I love technology in general. So early adopters to new technology, understanding the pitfalls of beta testing. But we've all probably seen the Boston Scientific dog. But imagine this brain in that robot. All of a sudden, it's interpreting its world, understanding colors, modalities, where it's going to be. And I'm not necessarily talking about the nefarious nature of having something like that, but even though that's definitely an application. But in its capability to have these AI assistants in robotic form as one implication
Well,
of
I
it.
mean, you've seen the Tesla robots, right? Elon's talking about rolling those things out real soon here.
That's fine. Although the Tesla track history is that you make that announcement, and it's a few years down the road.
Well, but still.
No, Josh. But when it does come out, it's probably gonna wow us. What I'm thinking about is just the pace of the now. I'm thinking about technology that's in the palm of our hands, like the Meta Quest, for example, which is VR goggles, and they have there's a thing called I think I showed you a video called the Human or Humane Pin, which is an AI pin that sits on your lapel and it interprets the world through a camera, and you get to interact with it. You're talking about live language translation. You're talking about potentially ocularly seeing the outside world and giving input and feedback to its user instantaneously using very advanced technology like that. And then now, albeit the MetaQuest is huge, it's a big giant goggle. But there's other things out there like the Valve Index, which is another VR goggle that's much more compact, much more slim. And just like when the cell phones first came out and we all knew the Motorola brick, right? It was like this big, or one you had to carry in a bag. But now we're carrying basically supercomputers in our pockets. I can just see that being integrated more and more and more into everyday items. You have those smart glasses, Google's failed smart Google Glass.
That's one of the really interesting things, in addition to this multimodal capability, is that Google has basically made their Gemini system in 3 sizes. So there's a large size for doing really, really complex, heavy computing. There's kind of a medium size for like using with your PC every day. And then there's this nano, they call it Gemini Nano, which is supposed to work on handheld devices. And in fact, Google is promising to roll this out into Google phones as a capability within the phone, probably very soon, since they they just rolled it out. It's already starting to work its way into Google searches, and all sorts of other Google products are going to start seeing this AI capability get put into them, along with this multimodalism. So, to your point, wearable tech, tiny pieces of technology, goggles, VR. We're definitely going to see AI getting into that, and clearly Google's been thinking about that much more, it would appear, than the other companies in terms of commercialization. So I think that is a really, really interesting aspect to it.
What are some of the potential legal conflicts or issues with doing something like that? Now you have this tech that's all-seeing, it's forever recording, essentially, and it's interpreting and devouring information in the given world, and it's personalized to its user. There's a lot of potential privacy implications, I would assume.
Oh yeah, it's going to be really interesting. And one of the things you have to consider is you've got a non-uniformity across all the states when it comes to recording laws, right? Mm-hmm. So there's essentially 2 systems. There's the one-party consent, the 2-party consent, and the no consent. So a one-party consent state means that if I'm going to record you, I don't have to tell you, because I've consented to it. So one of the parties to the conversation has consented to it. California here, we have what's called 2-party consent, which means if I'm going to record you, I have to consent to it, and you have to consent to it.
Sure.
So how is that going to work when we're wearing tech that's recording all the time?
Is it a different statute? And pardon my ignorance in this, is that you have, for example, officers that have body cams. One party side is recording. They're recording live as they're on duty. Is there a different statute that covers the fact that they're just recording 100% of the time versus the civilian?
Most of that recording is done in public.
Got it.
So you don't have an expectation of privacy in public.
Ah.
You just don't. And then that's always been the case. I mean, that's been the Fourth Amendment cases going all the way back, is your behavior in public, what is seen by people in public is not private, and it's not subject to the Fourth Amendment. So what we're really talking about is private conversations, things that happen inside the home, where people have the quote-unquote reasonable expectation of privacy.
But does it apply to officers don't turn their cameras off when they enter someone's home?
Correct, but if they enter someone's home, presumably they're entering under probable cause.
Got it.
So
okay.
if they have probable cause. So if they enter the home and they have the camera footage on and they didn't have probable cause and they record something, then that recording would be illegal, and that evidence would not be able to be used in
How about-
against whoever you would seek to use it against.
How about since we're in Hollywood, you could say Hollywood, California. I see a lot of signs when people are filming. It says, listen, if you're in this area, you're going to get filmed. If you don't want to get filmed, stay out of this area. I don't know what the law is applicable to that, but potentially if people have tech on and they make it known, I'm using recording in this tech. If you don't want to be recorded, go away.
Well, again, most of the time that's in the public's
Got it.
sphere, right?
Got it.
So the reason that Hollywood tends to put those things out is there's a difference between consenting to record something and then the commercial use of that. So I might record you in public, but then if I go out and make money with your image, there could be some property rights involved there, and I didn't have your consent for the commercial use of it. So a lot of what Hollywood does is by putting those signs out, and oftentimes they'll have people sign things that give away the rights to their image for the limited purpose of whatever they're going to use it for.
This gets even trickier then, doesn't it? Because in the world that we live in of influencers that do use all their content for commercial purposes in order to make a living, gain followers, get ad revenue, and they're filming things using their glass or AI as a part of their just general content, they are having commercial use of that. Doesn't that kind of get murky then?
It does, and this could be a really good conversation for a different day, simply because I'd need to do some research on that to figure out exactly how all that works.
That's
but I'm going
fair.
to take a shot at it. I'm going to shoot from the hip.
Sure.
My shot from the hip on that is that it's different if you are using the image for some sort of public benefit, like a news gathering or reporting what went on. That's different than I think if you were to sneak up on a girl in a bikini on the beach and then post that picture of her to Pornhub or something, that would be a violation of her privacy.
Sure.
Right, because you're making commercial use of something. It's not even necessarily commercial use, but it's just it's just a huge invasion there.
Sure.
Which is different than I'm going down the street and I interact a Karen who's screaming at me, and I take a recording of her and then I put her up on
Sure.
the thing. One of them it's like a kind of reporting a current event, or it has some public purpose or some news purpose to it.
Sure.
Where the other one is just using someone's image for raw, commercial gain.
Yeah.
But that's me shooting from the hip. I'd have to look into that.
Because it is an interesting topic, the offshoot of that, and there's a lot of legal implications. From an accounting standpoint, the way I think about AI and wearable tech is the fact that these devices are going to amass a tremendous amount of data. That data, as we know, take an example of the Roomba robots, and the reason why some of their parent companies sold for so much was in fact that the Roombas are really magical machines, is that they have mappings of the data sets of the homes that they're cleaning. And there's I don't have to make too many points, but there's a lot of value to tech companies in the data of Americans and humans across the world, globally. So then you create this system where, aside from the cell phone, which we carry around every day, right, for our own personal tracking, it now has physical interactions, and it can interpret what is being seen, what is being done, the actions we are taking, also the emotions that are involved in that transaction, versus what I feel that phones are a little more secondary. So we call it the Big Brother effect, or the Instagram or Facebook effect. You and I have a conversation about motorcycling on the coast of Barcelona, and then all of a sudden we get an ad that is for rental of motorcycles on the coast of Barcelona. So this is even more refined than listening and interpreting our voice. You have this human emotion, and then also the next piece of it is that data set becomes timely. So the asset of personal data and data privacy I think, has a huge potential financial impact, and also I think it has a huge impact on how people need to conduct themselves in public. I don't know the laws around it, and I would love to, maybe in another conversation, talk about, man, what does that mean? It almost seems like there's no expectation of privacy anymore, John.
Well, Kent, it would seem to me that over the last 5 to 10 years, that horse has left the barn, and there's no getting it back. I mean, it's just not.
Yeah.
What are we going to do? Come on. I mean, I can remember. I'm sure you did the same when you started finding out. Oh, your phone's tracking where you're at, and Google's taking your searches, and maybe some of us would like turn off those features on our phone, or go into our Google account and erase our location data because we're trying to we don't want Big Brother knowing what we're doing. I think everyone's sort of given up on that. At least I did. It's just like, okay, there's no getting away from it, and there's benefits to it for sure. But at the same time, if you ever go into your Google account and look up things like location data and things like that, you'll sit there and go, oh my God, this thing knows everything I've done.
Yeah.
Every place I've been. And it's not just, a GPS coordinate. It's like, oh, at 3 o'clock on Wednesday, you were at the gym. And you were there for an hour. It's like,
wow.
Damn.
Now that gives much more robust targeted ads. For
certainly
sure.
it does.
For sure.
Certainly it does.
I think the benefit to your lifestyle is how they arbitrage call it the invasion of privacy. And I feel like there's two sides to it. Part of me personally is that I can say creeps me out that I'm being electronically followed on my every move, right? And then I think about it societally. I wonder if it could be used in a positive light, which means if everyone knows that all their behavior is being recorded, how people act sometimes in public, we call it the fake face, right? The fake smile. If the truth comes out and the truth is monitored through someone's AI throughout their morning and night, would it force the population or subsection population to comport themselves in a way that is integral and ethical, whether they're in public or private? Because it's all potentially out there for show. Because what I really am displeased by are folks that are really two-faced, rather than what you see is what you get. I think we would personally have a very interesting society if everyone was what you see is what you get, and they're not two-faced in the privacy of their own home.
Yeah. Well, that's the upside, I suppose. But we all know the downside, and I think the downside's a lot scarier. And that's the social credit score notion of what's coming and is already apparently a big thing in China. And the notion that if you don't do the right thing, or if you cross the line in the wrong way, even maybe accidentally or inadvertently, and you end up, going down the hole of having something that you did or said, or maybe something you did when you were drunk, could haunt you the rest of your life, and maybe you wouldn't have access to the subway, or maybe you'd have to pay a higher tax, or maybe you wouldn't be allowed to have a driver's license. Think of all the things that many people think are rights. Well, the government has never said they're rights. In fact, it's always been very clear that they're privileges, and the big ones like having a driver's license. Having a driver's license is not a right. It is a privilege, and the privilege can be taken away from you, and that's how, and that's why you have to realize your driver's license can be taken by the DMV,
Sure,
not the court. So a pencil neck bureaucrat at the DMV can take away your license.
I agree. I think that those societal questions are just something that's going to evolve, whether we like it or not. That's going to be something that's going to be played out in societies across the world, not just here. But outside of privacy, one of the other things that I think about too is dependence or over-reliance on this technology. We think about some of the old world skills that used to exist that no longer exist, that have expired as a result of not being passed down from generation to generation, or not being relevant for a period of time, and then the knowledge kind of disappears. I don't want our society to go the way of, ancient societies, the Mayans that seem to have had technologies, the Egyptians that had technologies that never got passed down over the centuries. Could it be that our over-reliance, and I made a mention of this before in one of our other conversations, that we become like that Pixar movie WALL-E, we're just a bunch of slobs sitting in moving sofas, waiting for AI to tell us everything that we need to do with our day?
In a way, Kent, I think we're already there. I'll give you a personal example. I have a innate ability myself just to go where I need to go. And I'm talking about navigating the streets
Sure.
or how to get someplace. So, I know how to, go here from my house. I know how to go there.
Mm-hmm.
Go from here to, if I want to go downtown LA, I know how to get to downtown. I don't need the computer to tell me.
Sure.
But I watch my boys drive, who are in their early 20s. They don't take a dump without asking Google how to get there.
Wow.
Or using maps. They're using it to go home from work every day. So I kind of did an experiment with my youngest, and I said, hey, try going to this place without using your phone.
Tell me what happened.
He got lost.
Of course.
He was like 20 miles the wrong way. And I was flabbergasted by that because it's kind of an innate skill I've always figured in my family with navigation. I'm a pilot and I'm obsessed with maps, and I just, I kind of carry an image of the world in my brain.
Yeah.
They don't have that anymore. So they're utterly helpless without their phone. And, that's an even more interesting observation. That is my wife, her father used to say, something really mean, that she couldn't find her way out of a paper bag. And, she's always had a little trouble with navigation. She's way better than they are with navigating without the phone. She does not need the phone to go from the grocery store to the house.
Yeah, with that reliance, that I think that points to decision making being affected by technology. And the way I mean that is, in your case, you're talking about Gemini being able to have various modalities, and it's making interpretations of what it sees, and it's doing it based on its prior knowledge. Now, if human reliance gets to a point where it says, oh, whatever the AI told me, their interpretation of the worldview is what mine should be, then you start creating decision-making influence, which is, and I think, a very dangerous reliance on technology. And I say that in the professional fields too, because we talked about having GPTs. So, for example, ChatGPT recently issued the ability to create your own GPT based on a subset of knowledge, right? And it gives you outputs based on that specific core set of knowledge. And if people are using it in a professional capacity, and then you add on the layer of reliance. So if they're already relying on getting home from work from their AI, when they're at the office, if the AI says, do this, then they're also reliant on that. So then it becomes, I don't know if the example is horse before the cart, but who's guiding who, right? The idea is that the human is supposed to provide the prompt, right? It may not have all the knowledge, but it kind of understands and orchestrates the events or the output that's needed. But with interpretation, with the ability to use those modalities and AI to develop an interpretation, and humans in continual reliance on that technology, there could be a switch where AI is just telling people what to think, what to do, based on its own interpretation.
Don't you think that's already happening to some extent, though?
I mean,
with social media? I mean, Elon Musk made the comment the other day that I found staggering, was that I believe it was TikTok.
mm-hmm.
And he said he didn't use TikTok anymore because he felt the AI reaching into his brain. So, I don't know what he felt. I haven't really spent a lot of time on TikTok, but that's kind of an interesting thing. And that is an AI, right? I mean, that is a lot of what's going on there. So already when you have things like TikTok or Facebook or even YouTube Shorts feeding your stream, feeding your thoughts, it's influencing what you think, right? If it gives you a steady diet of Jordan Peterson videos, that's going to have a big influence on how you see the world and how you think, maybe for good or bad.
True, it becomes its own.
But on the other hand, it could give you a steady stream of I don't know.
Is appropriate terminology, I think that's called having an echo chamber, right? And having an echo chamber for your own thoughts, basically letting you spiral out on your own inner thoughts. And I think from a professional capacity, if it starts to go that direction, you're going to have accountants, auditors being told, hey, based on this set, this is what the AI has interpreted, so let's not turn on our brains or our thinking cap, and that's exactly its issue. Instead of looking at things from a different perspective, one of the values that we bring to our clients is taking a set of facts, situations, and extrapolating and understanding it from different angles. And maybe AI has a focus, and maybe it hasn't gotten to that third, fourth angle. But since minds have not been trained over time to think in that capacity professionally. Maybe the tax interpretation, the law, the tax stance is not something that's common. So AI didn't think about it. But then the professional never got trained and is never thinking about that again. And then maybe in law, there's a certain case set of facts, and you want to, craft it into something else. But since AI told that this is the case law, this is the way it's going to be, that's the only answer that happens.
Well, here's my idea for, I think, the perfect storm for the legal profession in terms of turning future lawyers into jelly.
Okay.
And that is, we already have a situation that is longstanding for many, many years where the colleges are not teaching their students to think critically. Mm-hmm. And I've already noticed it in young lawyers that I'm working with that they just accept rote rules or just accept the world for what it is without thinking about it, without looking at it from different angles. And this is what we do as lawyers. I mean, you come to me and, say to me, well, this is what happened. This is the contract we entered into, or this was the real estate deal. And I look at it, and there's always, the knee-jerk reaction, oh, there was no contract, or this or that. But you get it if you really dig into the facts and you start nuancing the facts and you start looking at different angles, which is critical thinking, right? You're trying to think a different way. You're trying to approach the problem from different ways. And that is already out of the picture with our schools. And now add in the layer where, well, I really don't have to think at all. I'll just feed the facts into the AI, and the AI will tell me, what the causes of action are. The AI will tell me whether I have a defense or not. In fact, you know what? Fuck it. Let's just tell it both sides of the story, and the AI can be the judge and jury and executioner.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, AI judge Dredd.
I don't think that's not coming.
And I can see it. That is an actual scary thought, because in the other layer to it, you had mentioned that AI has different versions. Call it version light for non-complicated tasks, or version medium, and then version heavy for the really intense AI structures that need to be interpreted. I can extrapolate that into saying access inequality. What if you don't have enough money to pay the premium subscription to AI, and your AI is the light version, and you get misled, or you get not all the facts, or you're not supported, and especially if AI is a supplement to legal support, right? And because they can't afford the premium subscription, they get AI light. Yep. So you have access inequality in and of itself. And as it is, technology, having some of the most highest end pieces of technology that we use day to day, like our phones, they're rather expensive. Do you remember when iPhones brought out the first $1,000 phone and everyone blew a gasket? Now they're like $1,000. Okay. Yeah. That's how much the phone costs.
Well, let me tell you something I discovered, too, in looking into this Gemini thing that I thought was probably just because I just love to end with the scary thought, right? Mm-hmm. So here's a real scary thought for you. So I saw some interviews and I looked at some writings from the people who are in charge of the safety at Google in particular. And it's not true for just Google. It's also true for others, too. And when you and I think about AI safety, and when you listen to someone like Musk talk about, AI safety, you're thinking about, well, making sure that you can turn the thing off if it tries to kill humanity, right? Mm-hmm. The Terminator scenario. Guess what? That's not what they're thinking about.
What are they thinking about?
What they're thinking about is, well, we don't want it interacting with humans in such a way as to cause them hurt, pain, or discomfort. We don't want it to say anything racist. We don't want it to say anything sexist. That's what they're talking about. I kid you not.
So woke AI.
Well, Elon Musk says it's already woke. He says ChatGPT is woke. He said that. So that's already a thing. And I think if there's a lot of people that have done tests where they, feed it something about Donald Trump and it doesn't like it or won't do it, and they feed it something about Joe Biden and it says something, flowery. Okay, fine, whatever. But that's not the scary thing to me. Because if you make it woke and it's woke, that's, your product sucks. That's your problem, right?
Sure.
The scary thing is what they think safety is.
Huh.
So that's literally like you and I discussing firearm safety, but the thing we're really worried about is that we don't offend anyone with it. The thing we should be worried about is it killing someone.
Well, actually, my concern really is never surround turn it off or turn it on, is that its capability to influence. This whole conversation we're talking about our dependency on it, or the society's dependency on it. And of course, the dependency causes influence. So you don't have to rig an election ballot anymore. You just have to create an AI that has enough subscribers to influence their mentality, and they, of their own theoretical influence to free will, make decisions that are in line. Think about the psychological science of mentalism, right? Mentalists, they implant suggestions, and when they guess your favorite number or the color of the car you drove, you know, or evoke some memory, and are able to use neurolinguistic programming to kind of make assumptions about what you're doing, or lead you towards an answer that you might not normally have done. This creating an AI mentalist, to me, is the scary part, because people don't know that they're capitulating.
Well, consider this. There's lots of books on mentalists, right? The techniques that are used. There's books on psychology. Don't you think AI has already been trained on that? The AI already knows that.
Wow.
It already, I mean, right? That's part of the body of knowledge that it's absorbed already. So it already knows those things. I don't know if it's reasoned on how to use them yet, but
like
don't think it won't.
It's a logarithmic curve of progression for the uses of AI, and I think it's going to be in short form that could be used. And we're also, on the opposite side, need to find ways of either identifying it and protecting ourselves and our own mental states, to know that what our own thoughts are our own thoughts. And so with that, I mean, I leave our listeners with a holistic and empathetic plea to understand how their data comes to them, right? And their use of AI, because there's no sense in fighting it. And really what people need to do is understand it, in my opinion, and utilize it and understand its pros and its cons, and inventory their life. And like you said, if you value your privacy, you're going to have to move into a mountain.
Yeah, go off the grid.
Off the grid.
Get rid of your phone, all that stuff.
Which is not practical typically for a day-to-day life. But this is another part of the conversation of AI, and I'm sure over another drink we're going to have more and more conversations, and it'll evolve just in the next few weeks and few months. And I'd love to say, oh, next quarter we'll talk about it. By then, it'll have moved so quickly. We're probably in a whole different echelon of what AI is capable of. So, yeah, with that, I am going to drink my Greyhound. What do you have today?
I got a nice bourbon here.
Yeah. And conclude. So, folks, thank you, listeners, for tuning in. We really appreciate you listening to us, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on hardware and its integration to AI, what you think the impact of AI is going to be on our society, and the evolution in the current state of AI hardware, what it means to you. Email us at podcast@taxis.com. Leave us comments, like, subscribe. I really appreciate you joining us. Till next time.